Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Real Hosts of Short-Term Rentals, and thank you for joining us today. Today, we have a special guest with us, Melissa Lambert, who has been in the short-term rental industry for many years now and focuses on glamping and luxury stays. She has yurts that she's going to talk to us about. Melissa, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Perhaps you can start by giving a little bit of a background about yourself and how you got into short-term rentals.
Okay, sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope I live up to your podcast standards. Not a genre I'm familiar with, so we'll do our best. But yeah, so my background is starts with a little bit of a tragic story. So I don't know if that's appropriate, but I used to be married to a professional cyclist, and he was unfortunately killed in a training ride when my kids were very young. And they were little, they never went to daycare, they never knew anything like that. So I thought, well, I got to figure out something to do where I don't have to go back to a corporate situation to work to keep them at home. So my thought was, well, let's see if we can't do something unique in terms of vacationing. And at the time, my mother lived full time in a yurt, and nobody knew what that was. I mean, you'd say it, and people would look at you like you had three heads. But she'd always lived in one, and we always thought it was cool. And I thought, people would probably pay for this. So we started looking for property. We originally started out in Arizona. Our idea was to go around the Grand Circle and have a yurt kind of all the way around the Grand Circle so people could plan that trip and stay with us all the way around. Almost closed on a property out there. And then when flew home, we had a junk mail for a property just above the Nantahala Outdoor Center in North Carolina. And we were like, that's it. That's where we're doing it. So we purchased it and started with 3. It grew to 9, and then we expanded over to something totally different. So we've got 2 in the same city now. So worked out really well.
That's amazing. And how long ago was that?
So the first 3 that we put up were in 2010.
Wow, that is pretty early on.
Yes, everyone thought that I had absolutely lost my mind. Even my family, they thought I was having some sort of grief response, which may have been true. I don't know, but it worked out for everyone.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So this has become and it's becoming more of a trend now. This whole glamping or luxury camping type of scenario. So was that something that you set your heart on initially, or have you changed this over the years, or where are you now with these yurts?
Right. So when we built our first 3, glamping was not a term. It wasn't anything that anyone ever said. I personally just like the structure because, again, I had experience from my mother living in them for many, many years, and it was just a really nice structure. You felt really good inside of it, and it had enough appeal to be different than a hotel. I thought it would be really easy to pull people away from hotels or cabins to pull into something like that. I don't think glamping, the actual term, came about until probably somewhere around, I don't know, maybe 2013, 2014, maybe. That's when it really started. People knew what that meant. They understood what the concept was. So when we first started out, it was a little bit of a hard pitch to get people to come into a space like that. But once they got there, they were very, very happy about it and excited to be there.
And did you start with Airbnb, with VRBO? What's your journey been like with the platforms?
So when I got started, Airbnb was also in its infancy. So it just started out right around, I think they were like 2007, 2008, something like that. And I think they started gaining some traction around 9 or 10. I don't think they became really something anybody, they didn't become a verb, like I say, they became a
Mhm.
verb at some point. We're just going to Airbnb that.
Yeah.
I don't think they became a verb until, I don't know, probably about teenish or so in our area. So when we started, we actually used Verbo. They were the people that were out and available to us at the very beginning. It was a different structure altogether than it is now. You used to have to pay an annual fee to be a part of their organization, and you pay that fee up front, and then they gave you full reign to do whatever you wanted to do.
Mhm.
And I loved those days, to be honest. I thought they were awesome. Um, Obviously, so they're a little different now, I'm sure everybody has Airbnb experience. A little bit different now, it's free to advertise, not so free to sell on Airbnb. But we
Mm.
did get most of our stuff through Verbo to begin with, and then we did our own, our own booking engine. We used a company called Web Reserve for a long, long time until we kind of outgrew what they could provide. And then it wasn't till after, I would say we were real comfortable with Vrbo, real comfortable with our own website. I think we started working with Airbnb somewhere along around 2013 or 14, I'd say. So yeah, that's how we kind of went in with it from there.
I believe that Verbo is in general more popular on the East Coast than it is on the West Coast. Would you find that to be true?
That could be the case. I wouldn't say that's how I would make the split. I think that Vrbo is more popular for a different age demographic than Airbnb. I mean, that's kind of how I see the separation. So, but then again, you can tell from my accent, I don't do a lot of traveling on the West Coast, so I don't really know
Right.
what's popular out there. But yeah, what I see is that our Vrbo guests are, kind of, towards the later end of their working careers, somewhere in the 40s and 50s. They've got a lot of discretionary income. They're looking for a particular type of size and of experience. Whereas our Airbnb folks, at least over here on the East Coast, are a little bit younger, looking for a little bit of a shorter stay, some flexibility in price and in, rules about staying.
And what sort of amenities or things do you offer when people stay at the yurts?
Wow. So the best advice I got when I started in this business was from another hotelier out of Charlottesville, Virginia. She told me to do them as much as you can for free. And I know that sounds really crazy, and I thought she was nuts when she said it too, but it does pay out because what happens is when you give away as much as you can comfortably give away, you're going to start seeing a clientele that has a bit of they're in a higher bracket, and they don't complain as much, to be totally honest with you. If you can drive that price higher, we see a correlation between satisfaction with what they're receiving with the price point. So if you
Yeah.
if you can give away what you can drive that price higher and ultimately get a more satisfiable customer, if that makes sense. So we try to provide everything you could possibly think of. That the common questions is: do we need to bring linens? Do we need to bring towels? Do we need to bring paper products? No, we have all of that here for you. So we make sure that those basics are definitely covered, and then we throw in some of the other things. Like we always give away free firewood. There's a big discussion over whether or not that's something that you should sell. Sure, you can
Mm.
make a lot of money with that, but you can also give it away, which is it's not a huge expense, and you're going to gain back some of those more desirable things, like customers who are easy to satisfy. So yeah, so we try to make sure that those basics in terms of camping would be covered in their stay.
Got it. Got it. And what challenges have you experienced running this enclave of yurts that you have?
Well, today's particular challenge is the power outage. That's always lovely when that happens. When you have a full house and the power goes out for several hours, that's always fun. But I would say probably challenges. They've changed. I mean, being in this over a decade and a half, you see different kinds of challenges. When we first started, our first challenge was figuring out what type of pricing would make sense. And what we found to be true, I don't know if any of your other folks have found it to be true, but we found that the lower you put the price, the more a customer might think you're trying to trick them. And so they don't book. So that was a little bit fun to figure out because we were like, why are we not booking? Why are we not booking? And we would lower the price and then it would get worse. And then eventually we would raise up the price and it would be like, then, oh, okay, all of a sudden we've got all of these bookings. To me, that was backwards. I thought that was a challenge, maybe not for others, but I thought price was probably the biggest concern. But we found the challenge in pricing is to make sure that what you're asking for the room kind of matches the visual image that you're putting forward. So if you've
Mm.
got this great photographer like you're talking about, and they make these amazing photographs, and then you price it, at a point that looks too low, people are going to pass you by thinking they're going to be tricked. So that was a challenge to figure that out. In the early
Mm.
days. Moving on, as we started expanding, the challenges became more focused on finding the right staff to take care of the place because that is of utmost importance. You really have to have people that care about what they're doing. I know
Right.
a lot of the other Airbnbs that surround us, they use property management companies. And I think that property management can be an amazing thing. And there are some property management professionals that do a really great job, but there are also some that don't. So I think we had some
Mm.
challenges there trying to find and locate those people that would take care of your property and care for it in a way that you would if you could. Because
Yeah.
obviously, a lot of people that get into short term rentals, they're not the ones that are taking care of the property all the time. And
Yeah.
so particular challenge is making sure you find that person who's going to treat it the way you would if you could be there. So that would be one. And I think probably, as you start to really get into it, the channels become a challenge. So when we start using all of the different channels through the booking engines, that can be interesting to get used to know the differences between working with Verbo, working with Airbnb, working with Expedia or Booking, and then
Mm.
what does all that bring when you're talking with a domestic customer versus an international customer? And so that can kind of, as you start to scale, those problems become something a little bit different than what you had when you started figuring out, well, how much do I charge per night?
Sure. Sure. That makes sense. I'd like to open this up to the rest of my cohorts, and I'm sure you guys also have questions for Melissa. Who would like to go ahead and ask her?
I've got a couple questions.
Hi, Michael.
So I know that glamping's kind of become a thing. The marketplace probably has changed. So I guess it's a two-part question. One is, do you feel like you have increased competition these days, or do you feel like since you sort of were there all along, you're kind of like the one who's been there? And then the second question is, with what's going on, at least in the US, with the National Park Service and all the cuts, do you see like an increased, maybe people are going to be coming to you more as a safe haven? They know you're going to be there because now these trips they were thinking of going to the national parks, there's a big uncertainty as to they have no idea what that trip's going to be like.
Yeah.
Um, do you sense anything out there?
Well, I can only speak to the national park that we're located against, and we are right up against the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. They didn't experience a lot of the cuts that some of the other national parks did. So I believe the last time I looked, I think they lost 27 positions, and 13 of those were open. So there really wasn't a whole big loss of actual people. That park seems to be operating fairly normally. So I can't really speak a lot to that because I think that that's not so true in other national parks. But we will get an occasional question where people just make the assumption that it's closed and, are there other things that we can do? So it's nice that they feel like, we can be an expert in that area and help them, find something else to do. But we have not had to tell them to do anything other than what they would normally have planned for themselves. So that's really all I can say about the national park uneasiness. As far as competition, though, there's a lot to say. So we started figuring out that there was going to be competition in the glamping field. I would say probably about 5 or 6 years ago, we started figuring this out because we would get people that would call. And one thing about me is I'll talk to anybody. I talked Ray's ear off, when he was there, So um, they would call, I would answer their questions, and then I would figure out, like I didn't get anything done today that I needed to get done because I talked to somebody on the phone all day long about a potential glamping business and how does that run. So what we decided to do was just set a price tag on it so that if you called, you kind of had a gatekeep. And if you wanted to talk to me, you had to pay the price. That had nothing to do with me feeling like I had expertise to share because I'm happy to give it to you. But it was really more so of weeding out the serious from the curious, if that makes sense. And what we noticed in the last couple of years is there are a lot of serious calls. So very many consultations, people willing to pay that price to come in and get that information. So, when I looked back on the people that I work with, it's like, okay, so it's always good to be first. It's always good to be first in anything. And we were kind of first in glamping. So it's, I told them all, I was like, we got to figure out how to be first in something else now. So if it answers your question, glamping's amazing. It will always have my heart. I love it. Um, but in my expansion, we did not build a glamping business. So we have something totally new now because we're trying to find that next new thing.
So is my hearing that you think it's kind of peaked or it's peaking and it's time to what's the next thing?
I don't know if you could say that it's peaking, because what I see happening is that people have been sold an idea that if you want to get into glamping, that it's a very easy pay for play, like it's an easy threshold to get into, very low investment to get started. That isn't true. If you're going to do glamping and you're going to do it right, you're going to spend as much as you would if you purchased a house and renovated it, for rent. So I think that what happens is that we have lots of people that try to start up glamping businesses, and they are not successful because they you know budgeted for $20,000 per unit, and that is just not the case, because they go onto these sites and they see how much a yurt or a dome or, I don't know, an Airstream cost or whatever, and they find out, oh, it's only $20,000, and they're like, great, I can buy 10 of them. No, you can buy I always tell people that the least expensive purchase line item for a yurt village is going to be your yurt. Everything else is going to be the same as anything else. So it's a pretty decent investment. So I wouldn't say it's peaking. I would say that there are a lot that stop and start because they don't realize the full investment. So I think if you, realize at the beginning you are going to be putting in a significant investment, you could do glamping and you can make it amazing, and people would definitely want to purchase or want to be a part of that product that you're selling. But for me, in my area, we have several successful. So for us, yeah, we decided we definitely wanted to try something in a little bit different direction. So hopefully what we can do is get ahead of this next wave and be ready to be the best in what everybody else catches on to in about 5.
And is that a top secret, what you're thinking about, or?
No, it's not top secret at all. It's actually very basic. What we found during COVID was very telling for us. I don't know if that's the case for any of the rest of you, but I think COVID is really what started taking people who were dabbling in short-term rentals and really taught them how to take it very seriously. Because for what we saw during COVID was we saw people seeking out what they considered to be cleaner and more private spaces. I thought it was the craziest thing, but if you think about it, it makes sense. These people that would vacation in a hotel or a cruise ship or any of these other places that we would normally go, a lodge against a national park or anything like that, what they wanted was to come away from that. And their reasoning was very simple. They didn't want any shared air conditioning systems. So very, very simple reason. So we were never busier ever than we were during COVID. The times that everything was shut down, we were at 100% capacity. And I'm not kidding. Every single unit was booked every single night for almost a year and a half straight. So anyway, I'm not sure why we were going that direction or why I was answering that question. But yeah, so for glamping, I think that became important. And what we saw during COVID, that's what I was going to say. What we saw during COVID was what we used to have is people that would basically say, give me my key, let me in, and leave me alone. They didn't want to talk to you anymore. It's like, I don't even want to see a person, just get away from me. We did not see that to be true in COVID at all. It was the exact opposite. When people came into the yurts during COVID, they were desperate to talk to one another. They wanted to make connections. I guess they had just been so isolated from their work and their jobs for so long that they were no longer interested in being kind of just to their own family or just to their own self. They really wanted to talk to other people. So that's what we took as the next new thing, is high service. So our new place, it's standard construction. There's nothing really glamping about it. It's a lodge, and it has several little detached cabins. But the difference is we have a full-time staff that's there 24/7. They do anything and everything legally that you can ask them to do to make their vacation exactly what they want. And we try to foster a space where we encourage those guests to come out of their own rooms and meet new people that happen to be vacationing at the same time. So that's what we're doing. And we're taking that as a lesson from what we learned in COVID, where people really don't want to be as isolated and alone as they previously thought. And it's a concept, I think I'm speaking correctly. I think that Europeans have a really good way of knowing that. They have that connection. And that's kind of how they do vacations, and I've always done it. I think we Americans kind of lost that somewhere, where we just want to stay away from everyone. And so we're trying to bring that European concept into the American space.
You schedule like group activities or anything like
We
that?
do, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we sure will. As a matter of fact, I had a gentleman that wanted to hike to Mount LeConte, which I don't know if you're familiar with the area, but it's the single hardest hike in the Smokies. And he didn't want to go by himself. And he's like, I really want to do this, but I don't want to go by himself. And I haven't hiked in probably 5 years. And here I go right up the top of the mountain with him. And we had the best time.
Nice.
It was really, really great. It was a great experience for us for me to bond with him as a customer. And then also just as a friend, we came away as friends. So it was really great.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Thank you.
What about you, Ray, or Sergio, Dina? Any questions that you have from Melissa that she hasn't answered yet?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, first of all, I think it's just really exciting to hear you speak about your journey and your properties, because you can really tell you enjoy what you're doing, and I think that kind of shows in the product that you also provide, both on the yurts and your new property over at Longview. And then second, congratulations on being awarded top 10 best glamping in multiple different places.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
I wanted to ask, yeah, you're welcome. I wanted to ask, what was your biggest takeaway building, a product like that, and then bringing that into Longview?
Okay, so that's a hard question because I really did try to take a lot of what I learned at Skyridge and try to feed it into Longview. And what we have found is that the pool for what we're doing at Longview is much deeper than it was for Skyridge. So the two don't necessarily mesh together. Of course, we
Mm,
can always take what we've learned in just in terms of customer satisfaction and customer service skills anywhere. But yeah, I really thought I had an idea of what I thought would happen based on what I learned at Sky Ridge, and it would kind of happen similarly at Longview, and it didn't turn out to be that way. It was two totally different sets of demographics. So that was surprising. So what I learned there really is that you really have to be ready to pivot to give whoever you're standing in front of what it is that they're looking to buy, because ultimately that's what we want to do. We want them to buy something from us. And you got to pay attention to what it is they're asking you to do. I have a lot of experience with glampers and I know what they want. They want free firewood. It's just that simple.
mhm.
But it's not quite the same for the folks at Longview. Like I said, they want something entirely different. I mean, like they want to be greeted with a bottle of wine. So here I go trying to figure out how to get a liquor license, which I never thought I'd get in a million.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. I think one of the points that you brought up too was the price point portion of it too. I think people forget that when people are looking at something more price sensitive, they're actually more value sensitive. They're thinking about, okay, what am I going to get for my money? And so if you're pricing it at a lower amount and you're not giving anything for free, there's always that like, huge question mark of like, okay, is this real? Is this actually something I should be booking? So it's interesting to hear back from another host saying, okay, yes, actually, if you do increase the price, you will be getting the leads or the guests that you want, because those are the people who are actually going to appreciate what you're doing. And then what I've
Absolutely.
also noticed, yeah, I've also noticed I've stayed in so many different types of stays, super budget stays to some, I wouldn't say like super luxury, but definitely like on the higher end. And what I've noticed, the higher end stays, when they're giving you free things, it does feel like they're actually putting more effort into their product and their service. And then you're, as a guest, are like, you know what, I'm going to come back because I feel like I'm being treated as a true guest and not like I'm just a number and I want to make money off this one guest. So
Yeah, I
thanks
think
for
that's
sharing that.
absolutely true. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And one thing that I often comment about myself is because I still manage both places. Um,
Mhm.
I have great teams. I don't have to do all the crazy stuff, but I do talk to guests on both sides. And it's kind of funny to watch because, my price point at Skyridge is significantly less than it is at Longview. But the folks at Skyridge are really, I don't want to say abusive because that's not true, but they just think they're talking to just an anybody. You know what I mean? And oh, that's not good
Mhm.
enough. Let me talk to your manager. That kind of thing. And it's crazy because I always think to myself, like, I really am, like, you're asking me for this particular thing, and I am the owner, and there's nobody that's going to give you more of an answer than me, and then you're still not satisfied. But the folks at Longview, because we are interacting face to face, they understand, hey, this is the owner of this place, and they're doing the very best that they can. And it's interesting to see how different um, interfacing with your customers are. if you haven't, I guess you guys all have kind of Airbnbs all around. If you're not there, or you're just kind of like letting the automatic messages roll out, and it's kind of a, kind of a vanilla interaction, it's totally different when you don't do that and you give them something more personal. And that's where we thought we had loyal guests at Skyridge, and we do. We still have a great guest return rate there, but the guest return rate at Longview is just off the charts, and we never expected that. And the difference is at Skyridge, they get a limited interaction with staff, but at Longview, they get a much greater one. And I think that can be replicated in any kind of short-term rental. I think that you can do that in many ways. I've seen people leave the little gift baskets out, when they get there. That's a way to be personal. Maybe not using, it takes a little extra time, but maybe not using all the time the automatic messaging that goes out to let people know, like send a personal message like, hey, I know you're here. What's going on? Hope you have a great time. Let me know if you need anything. It seems so simple, but I think people really respond to that when you start to make it a very personal experience for your guests.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. And then last question before I hand it to Dina or Sergio. I've been following your Instagram page for both your properties now for over a couple months, and I have noticed that you do a really good job with social media. Are you the one managing the back end? And also, do you see a
Sometimes.
lot of conversion?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, let's talk about that. No, I have a brand manager. She does all of that stuff for me, but and I do some of them on my own as well. And you can, if you look close enough, you can usually tell who did what because she's better at it than me. But sometimes I can't help myself. I'm like, oh, I want to take a video and show this to folks. But let's talk about that conversion. That's a great question. I don't know if any of you are dealing with influencers yet for your properties. I don't know if anybody's kind of there yet. That's a murky field, so in terms of conversion from your social media, influencers are going to approach you, especially if you have a great social media for your property. If it looks amazing and you do a good job of putting content on there, they are going to contact you and they're going to want to partner with you. So I would just say, watch out for that. Like, do a little bit of research, because some influencers are amazing and the conversion rate is real. Others are not so amazing. And you basically just gave somebody the opportunity to couch surf in your amazing space, if that makes sense. So the advice I would give you there, when you start talking about your social branding, when those influencers come, you want to always ask for their credentials. Like, ask them, show me, can you prove to me how many views or likes or comments or whatever it is that you get? And then always ask them to use a coupon that's specific to their name. For example, we have one influencer we use quite a bit. His name is Knox. When he does any content for us, we create a coupon that has his name and whatever discount we are going to offer. And that way we can always tell whether it's his followers or just somebody that just found us on their own. And that way you can start to manage your own conversion, or to see your own conversion rate. Because otherwise, like I said, sometimes those influencers, I've seen that now, they used to just want a free stay. Now they want a free stay plus several $1,000s just to come in there and make a story or a reel or whatever. And, if you can't show me how that's valuable to me, then that's not a good deal for me. The other thing that I would caution you about once you get into that influencer territory on your properties, every county should have a TDA, or it's called a Tourism Development Authority. So if you don't know yours, you might want to check out who they are in your area. What I've been noticing in the influencer world is that you can direct the influencer to your local TDA, and they will actually curate an entire stay for the whole town or the whole area. And why that's good for you is that the TDA has a budget and they can pay you for that influencer stay, if that makes sense. You've probably seen, there was one recently on Lakeview. I don't know if you saw it, but there was a lady that came and did the soak, and you probably saw it. So that one came through the TDA. So Lakeview did not have to compensate that influencer for any reason. They didn't have to do that. They had to give them the stay, but the TDA paid for that stay, if that makes sense. So that's something to keep in your back pocket. That took me a little bit of time to figure out, that you don't have to just give an influencer something for free. If they call you and they want to partner, you can say, hey, contact our tourism development authority. Here's their information. And they will start curating those things. And they'll send them not only to your rental, they'll also send them to, whatever attractions you have in the area. And they'll create content that makes sense for the whole of the town. And it's better for you because not only are you offering them, or not only are they seeing that you're the best place to stay, they're also seeing, hey, there's tons of other stuff to do here. And that's something that you didn't have to do.
Lawrence, this is for
I think
you.
that is one of the many gems from this episode.
Yeah.
For those watching, if you have not, and I bet the majority of you have not reached out to your tourism authority in the area, this is great. This is really a wonderful thing that perhaps you can get a free advertising paid for by your local tourism authority.
Absolutely. Yep, they're a great resource. And once I figured out they were doing that, we have never agreed to another straight influencer again.
I love it.
On that note, what would you recommend pitching?
Pitching to the tourism development agencies? Oh, it's not even a hard pitch because their job is the same as yours. They want to bring tourism to your area. What we do to make sure that our tourism folks bring people to us is, one, we just make sure we offer the best product. And that's not hard to do, because they don't even know what else is out there. So just tell them it's the best and they'll bring you on. The other thing that you can do is just, interface with them. If they know who you are, they're going to remember your space. And when that influencer calls them directly, they're going to go, I know exactly where to send them. I'm going to send them right over to Skyridge or Longview. So if you can interface with them together, that's fine. Again, they don't want any kind of compensation from you. So it's not really a hard pitch. They just want to know you are open to being a receiver of any of those types of influencers that do come knocking on their door.
Melissa, for those people who are watching this and are thinking, that they've been thinking about initiating a glamping type of structure as opposed to just a one-off home for renting out, what would you advise in terms of the path for getting there on the financing side and putting a structure together to make it work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can only speak to how we did it. And I got a great piece of advice that basically just said, go to the SBA and fill out the questionnaire. And the man told me it was kind of like a dating service for small business owners. So you kind of fill out your profile and then the SBA connects you with people who are interested in doing what you're doing. The types of finance options that seem to like to kind of grasp onto glamping are people who have something to do with an environmental clause or an environmental, what's the word? Where it's kind of like your purpose, the folks
Sustainability.
The folks that do that kind of stuff, they're really, really excited to help people that are doing glamping because it's seen as something, like you said, that's very sustainable, very low impact on the natural surroundings. They like the idea of taking something that's very beautiful that would normally be sold off to an individual and that only that individual could enjoy. They like the concept of that being shared by lots of people. So when I did take my friend's advice and I went on the SBA and filled out the little dating app for financiers, we said these are the things that we're doing pretty consistently. I think we had probably 10 or 12 different groups that were interested in environmental sustainability that came at us, and we basically could take our choice, which was shocking to me because I was like talking to banks and they're like, no, no, and no, because it's not it's an unusual structure and banks just don't want to touch it. But these folks that want to see jobs created in rural areas, which is usually where glamping is going to exist, in some sort of mountainous or beach, something that's considered rural. They want to see things, they want to see things built there. They want to see the low impact to the environment. They were basically beating down our door and we were like, wow, this is amazing. We had no idea this even existed. And that came through the SBA. So you just go on there and you fill out their questionnaire about what it is you're going to do, and you will get active leads for financing from that site. You won't get it from the SBA per se, but you will get it through other qualified investors.
So just to clarify, the SBA is Small Business Administration, correct?
Yes.
And if you are able to share with us, what sort of terms did you negotiate with these investors that were looking to invest with you?
Well, I'm kind of a long hauler. I didn't build these businesses to scale and sell like a lot of people are interested in doing. That's just not what I wanted to do. I really like them and I want to keep them. I want to hold on to them. So we found companies that were willing to take your idea before a board. They pitched it for you. And they were able to give us different terms. I think they do a 20-year term. So we were able to solidify that. And that's what we went with. They had other options. But that's what we chose because, I kind of knew that I wasn't going to scale and sell. So, but I know that that is a common practice for a lot of folks. They want to do just that. They want to buy it, set it up, get it going, and sell it to somebody else. The company that we work with, they have options for that as well. Like you can get a 5-year term, a 1-year term. There's lots of different options. But we chose the longer one because we knew we were going to keep it for the long.
Got it. So people who haven't necessarily done this before, but maybe have some experience with other rentals or something like that, that's something which they could apply to through the SBA and possibly get investors who were interested to invest.
Yes. That's exactly what they do. You really did just fill out an SBA form and then you start getting calls. So don't block your calls because you're going to get lots of calls from places you don't recognize. And they're all going to be investors going, we want to give you money. So answer the call.
Do you know what that form is called?
I'm
Do you
sorry,
know
I
what
didn't
that
hear the question.
Do you know what that form is called?
I'm sorry, I still didn't hear the question.
What the form is, I don't know if you know what the form is called.
There is it's not, I don't remember the name, but I saw it recently, and it's just when you go right to the SBA, it says something like let us match you to lenders. So you just look for that button and it just says lender match or something like that, and then you just click there and you just begin to fill out the information, and then they'll pass that out to potential investors.
Yeah, it's amazing, all these things that are sort of under the radar for most people. I know that Dina had some experience with applying for and getting a tourism grant from her local government in Canada. So there are things like that out there if you look for them.
Yes, there are lots of grants. I haven't applied. Well, actually, that's not true. We did receive one small grant for internet in the space, so that's nice. But yes, there are lots of grants out there available, and I have a good friend who finances a lot of her businesses through grants. And so investing in a grant writer is a great thing to try to do, because those folks are out there and they know exactly what to find, they know exactly what to say, and they can usually get you the grants that you need as well.
Yeah. Do any of the rest of the real hosts have any further questions for Melissa?
I do. My camera's not working. My phone's too hot. Curious
Mine's
about
about to get there with you. Don't worry. The two
and you know what, Melissa?
people.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for being so transparent about like everything. This has been so good, so helpful. I love it. I am curious about like a secondary revenue stream using like selling out as an event space for offsites for corporate, because I see it happening where, a brand will come in and rent out the whole space and bring in a whole pile of influencers. Do you have like, is it worth it doing it that way? Because it kind of screws up your calendar a little bit where you have to, like, do you see any value in that? Have you ever hosted large groups like this?
Yes, we have. Actually, if you visit our website at skyridgeyurts.com, shameless plug, but anyway, it's really for your question. If you go there on the homepage, there is a video that you can run, a YouTube video that was actually produced by exactly the type of group that you're talking about. It was a large group of influencers. There was one main, and then she brought in several satellites that influenced in different areas. And you can see their video that they produced. It's a top-notch video, and it got a lot of attention. So they were willing to do it in January, which was our time when we don't really have people in January anyway. So it worked out. We did find value there. I would say that it wouldn't be valuable if they wanted to do it on the 4th of July weekend. That wouldn't work. But if they're willing to work with you, I would say yes, because we did see, specifically what we saw was there were some shots of them doing yoga. And we have now booked our second yoga retreat off of it. So yeah. But I would say,
Super cool.
I would say protect yourself and know that what you have is of value too, because what the influencers like to do is they like to try to tell you how valuable they are and they like to assume that what you're giving them is free for you. Does that make sense? So you want to make sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you charge a premium for them to book out the whole resort? Like, is there a multiplier that you use? Because for film, that's what I would do. Like, if you're staying, this is how much income I would make plus the inconvenience factor. How do you mark that up?
That's exactly what we do. You know, we do that now with weddings and retreats at our newer place. And you can go on it and do the math. If you rent out the whole place, it's going to cost you X amount. If you tell me you're going to have a wedding or an event, it's going to be 3 times that. But of course, what we do is we make sure that the customer understands when you do an event like that, you're not just renting rooms. You're not just going to go to sleep and we don't have to bother, we don't have to really deal with you. You know what I mean? You're going to want us to go fetch this and set up that table and move this TV over there so that you can do X, Y, Z. So they know that there's other stuff that you're doing and there's value in that. And that's where the price is. So yeah, I would mark that up for sure. We do.
Cool. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Super. Melissa, this has been a wonderful, insightful interview with you. Really appreciate your time. Melissa Lambert, what is the best way for people to contact you if they have any further questions or if they want to book your properties? Where would they go?
Yeah, so my number is really easy to find. You can go to either of our websites. It's skyridgeyurts.com or longviewresort.com. Both numbers, there'll be 2 different numbers. They ring to the same place and you'll always get me. So just give me a call. There's also chat bots on there as well. If you want to send me a chat bot message, I receive those as well. So that's always been our inside joke. Calls, they don't get the answer they like. They send an email, they don't get an answer they like. They send a chat bot, they don't get the answer they like. And I'm like, dude, it's me. All 3 me. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm sure we all experience something like that.
yeah. So same for me. If you need to get me, just remember either of our businesses and whatever contact information you see there, that's going to come to me and I'll respond back.
Super. Well, thanks again for joining us. And for those of you watching, if you enjoyed this episode, please like it. Please share it with those people who you know will benefit from it. And we meet once a week, talk about different aspects of the short-term rental industry and have guests on. So we hope to see you on another episode of The Real Hosts of Short-Term Rentals. Thanks again for joining us, and bye-bye for now.
Bye.